We have spoken about building businesses, we have spoken about education, we have spoken about personal development. I think one of the areas that I'm most excited about this panel is that we have not yet covered is the spiritual sense that everybody in this room should have. At least the teachers should have spirituality. I'll just give you my context, and I have a fantastic panel. I think all four of them, Atish will be here. I had a personal conversation on spirituality, and all four of them, given our conversations, are here today. And I'm grateful that I could make this happen. Then I could get all four of you here. Because that conversation that happened on that table, somewhere in that conference that we were having lunch together, or coffee together, or we were meeting together. But my personal context of my spiritual journey, they tell me yesterday you did 8 hours of podcast panels, and then in the night you were on the WhatsApp group typing. In the morning again you were on the WhatsApp group typing and asking us for feedback. I mean, there is Francisco here somewhere, I don't know. Francisco was here with Barry, and Franco came up to me in the morning and said, when do you sleep? When does your brain die? Like like cell phone dies, you need to charge yourself up. I think the morning 2 hours that I have are the time that I am charging myself up. And spirituality charges me up. But it was not like this. When I was 40, I had a midlife crisis, kind of. I was going big in my head. I traveled the world, and you hear this glamorous line of mine, 40 countries, 1,000 plus institutions, and you thinking, what was this guy doing? But when I reached 40, I was like almost about to give up. And I was like, what is the purpose of life? I had given some aims to myself. I had achieved that. And I almost like was a ship without a radar, or a flight without a radar. I'm like, what do I do for next 20 years? And I also had my daughter. And then I started thinking, what is the values I give to my daughter? And then it took me on a path. And I started realizing that my education never prepared me for my emotional intelligence, my spiritual growth. As Shiv Khera sir was talking about it, 6 elements are very important for us: mental health, financial health, physical health, emotional health, and then one of those healths is spiritual health. We resonated with Shiv Khera ji, right? Everybody of us was like clapping and doing it. But tell me, where do we start inculcating spiritual habits? Are we doing it in our schools? Some of you are the most progressive schools, may be doing it. But when I talk about schools, I'm talking about not the best of the best schools, but when Shiv Khera ji spoke about spirituality, this room resonated, and I'm like, these are the top schools, and they still feel there is a gap that we are not talking about, and that it validated my thought that we are not bringing spirituality to the front. And I found my solace, and cut the long story short, in a book called Bhagavad Gita. And the Gita gave me a lot of those answers that I was looking for. And you can have your own ways of looking at things. But Gita really brought this to me, that my purpose in life is more than just my designation or my salary or my bank account or whatever it is, or a car I drive or the house address that I have. And I'm happy that I've got a platform today to bring this fantastic panel in front of you, and all four of them are deeply spiritual people. And I know for a fact because I've spoken to them. So let me bring in Nayan sir. Nayan, Parikh, as my students are introducing, is a legendary guy from IIM Ahmedabad, 81 batch. 1981 he went to IIM Ahmedabad, then he did law, and for the last 30 years he has been building businesses. He has his own consulting company. I met him at a conference in IIM Ahmedabad. And then we were chatting, and I got to understand the spiritual side of it. And then he also told me a disturbing fact that, there are suicide cases happening in even IIMs, IIM Ahmedabad. And he was when he spoke, and we keep reading about IITs. And why are these super successful people that are entering the gates of IIMs and IITs entering suicide? We all hear these terms of mental health crisis, social media. But what is the root cause of this problem? Nayan sir, I think I will bring you in now.
I'm so glad that you're doing this, and such a privilege and pleasure to be here. And not much is talked about this. So when you talk about this cat, it feels bad. I would like to talk from where kind of he left as to in institutes of excellence, if suicides are happening, what do we do? And therefore, I think spirituality as early as we can teach. And why? Because after your study, I'm taking it granted that you would be successful. And after success or money, who you are gets power of 100. I'll repeat, after success and money, who you are gets 100 times the power, which means that if you are angry, you become 100 times more angry. If you are disturbed, you become more disturbed. If you are unhappy, your unhappiness multiplies. I've seen it with my friends who have become rich, and they get power in that, whatever they are. So it magnifies. Now, if success and power and money magnifies what you are, then how do you prepare for that? That you prepare them to be peaceful and blissful. And if they are peaceful and blissful and then successful, then that amplifies. If we have seen cases of Deepika Padukone or Kapil Sharma, who at the height of their success, or Michael Jackson somewhere, would become very, very depressed, or I am the bad student. So I feel that success and money, but before that spirituality, because only that would kind of, get multiplied. And that as to why spirituality. One is this. Second is that how do you prepare a child or your youth for 40 more years? Technology may change, knowledge may change, skills may change, may not be relevant, but their perspective of life is what would stay with them, no matter AI, BI, CI, whatever we talk about. But that the spectacles through which you see the world would remain, and I want all of us to give them that spectacles by which they see the world of spirituality. And that, I think, therefore, that is the second reason. Third is, people say that if you are young, you are kind of less likely to be spiritual. वो 50 साल में करेंगे, 60 हो गए तब करेंगे. So I think वो तो बिल्कुल ही नहीं है. I think spirituality has nothing to do with age. I have seen spark of spirituality even at an age of 10 and 15. So that is kind of, that is the best age, is the youngest that you can start. And therefore, I think we need to do that. And then these are how, but why, I think is even more important as to how do we do that. Which means that for spiritual students, we would need to be spirituals. You and I, all of us who are involved in education, would need to be spiritual first. And spirituality, I would request that if this goes well, please do a half-a-day workshop, because how is very difficult to talk in 5 minutes or 10 minutes. I think it's a journey that you go through, that you become spiritual and you kind of transform the world after that. So in how I feel that we can all perhaps take that first step, but that journey is more like I think doing things and sharing experiences and changing the energy in the room and being different than what we are. And I feel that kind of workshop, if it does well, I'd be very happy. I'll be fortunate part of that journey. Or wherever you want to talk about spirituality, I'll be very happy to come and contribute.
Thank you so much. And I just want to emphasize here again, I mean, spirituality in the sense, even the grounding of the child. I mean, some of the conversations that we have been having here, we are talking about how children are finding it difficult to connect to other people. I mean, they are more addicted to social media and screens, and that is making them less and less. I mean, we just heard one of my students say, when somebody asked about Gen Z, and they said, oh, no, they are not emotionally available, or something like that. And he nodded and he said, yeah, but that's a problem, right? I mean, if you are not emotionally available and you're afraid of getting into relationships or talking to people, that leads to problem, because world is made up of people, and these guys have to go on and work with people and build teams. And so I think spirituality in that sense also, ma'am, I'll come to you, Dr. Ambika. I mean, you lead one of the leading schools in Dubai and a fantastic educationist. Please share your views from the school leader's perspective on spirituality, and what do you think of the subject that we have?
Thank you. So I'm just going to share what we do at school. And I think we firmly believe that well-being is extremely important for students to learn at school. And when we look at well-being, we are to deconstructed that into 5 elements. And I was happy to hear Mr. Shiv Khera because it kind of validated what we do at school. So our principles are around cognitive well-being, because we feel 80% of the time students are in classes, and unless they are not cognitively well, then there will be no well-being. And what supports that cognitive well-being is the intersection of 4 other pillars, which is physical well-being, social emotional well-being, and spiritual well-being. So our framework that we follow at school has all those 5 pillars, spirituality being one. And then we also had to think about, okay, if it's spirituality, what does that mean? And we were very clear that it has to be based on understanding self, who we are as human beings, and looking at what Mr. Khera spoke about is universal values. And therefore, value-based education is one of the cornerstones of what we do at school. And we've got many programs like Value of the Month and service elements. I was sharing, I think, at lunch that we're around Square School. So bringing in that service element of giving of yourself for others. So that's how, in small ways, we build spirituality. Every morning, the students have to do mindfulness. They need to practice mindfulness for at least 2 to 3 minutes. And when we started that at school, the senior students just would not take to it, because they're saying, what is this nonsense? Where the music would play on the PA system. But the younger ones who've grown with that, you should now see them in senior school. In fact, some of them come back, say, and even if say, when we are anxious and when we are trying to study, we just go back, we play some meditation music, and we just close our eyes. You touch at least 5 lives, and you know that your work is at least on this journey.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
these are some of the things we do at school.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Beautiful. Astha, you are a counselor yourself at DPS Mathura Road, and you've been a counselor for many, many years now. Your take on this subject.
Yeah, so from counselors' perspective, why do we see children today with so much fear of failure? Why do we have children, landing up in comparisons and perfectionism? It's because somewhere when the grounding fades, when spirituality is missing, learning becomes transactional.
Yeah.
And the real purpose we all know of education, to quote Rabindranath Tagore, is to find harmony between intellect and inner self. We all in schools talk about intellect, but I think inner self is the most neglected or the gray area, which even though we are talking about it, I don't know how we are reflecting on it. And ma'am, just to add on, very well said that we have a scheduled timetable for reflecting, for pausing. And that structure in school, having it in the timetable, having it in the curriculum, not as a prescription, but as a reflection, is very important to, produce leaders who not just enlighten minds, but touch hearts.
Yeah.
I think those are the leaders we truly look forward to. So from counseling perspective, I think parents also need to understand this, schools need to understand this, that values are not learned by slides, but absorbed by systems. If the school
Yeah.
rewards only marks, marks become the value.
Well.
If school rewards integrity, integrity becomes the value. If school rewards honesty, honesty becomes the value.
Absolutely.
So we have to really think.
We can have a round of applause for.
And Jika, just to, lastly, schools work heavily to build rigor in children to succeed in life. I think rigor is not the problem, but hyper competition is. And rigor will sharpen intellect, but spirituality will strengthen character.
Yeah.
And character is all that we have learned about today.
Yeah,
Sure, yes, SJ.
Yes, thank you so much. I want to now invite Dr. Atish. I've been a celebrated educationist, professor. The context of this panel is I met him at a conference and we started talking about our profession, and in which he said, long time back, and we started talking about Gita, and he said, I launched a course on Gita. I mean, years back at SP Jain, and then I continued with that course, and at that point of time said, I want sir to come and talk about spirituality from a higher education perspective, and why was he ready to launch a course on Gita many years back. Sir, over to you.
So, Ankur, thank you so much. I'm sorry for being a little late, but it was not me who launched the course. It was my team, which was late Dr. Manish Shrikant, who launched this course on spirituality in management. And that was in SPGM a long time back. Okay, and SPGM, of course, is a top institution today. And one of the things and I am not an expert on spirituality in any which way, okay, I have a faculty in the area of marketing. So the way we looked at spirituality when we were developing the course, and I was a young assistant professor, I almost worked like a TA with him. Okay, is that what is it that we want our graduates to be like? And there were two things which we thought of. One is, and why do we need spirituality? Yeah. So the two things we found that the success of a leader essentially is a 7% because of all the technical and other competencies, but the balance 90% plus is because of the way the person is. Okay, and in terms of the fact that what Madam said just now, how one can manage oneself, number one, how one can develop an agenda for self-development, and being non-self-centered. Yeah, that was the key piece, be non-self-centered. And then, since we are talking about spirituality, then what is the purpose of education? Okay. If we go back to our scriptures, the purpose of education is very clearly defined, which is Vidya Dadati Vinaya, which means that education makes the person humble, humility. Vinaya Dati Patratam, the humble person will become a good human being. And today's generation and our generation, everyone wanted to make money. So, Patatva Dhanam Apnoti. A good human being will earn. Dhana Dharmam Tatasva. And because if you have earned, you have the resources, then you use those resources for the right means. And that is what makes us happy. Ultimately, you all want to become happy.
God, easy.
So, this is the fundamental purpose. And you are talking about young or old, at what time it should be introduced.
Yeah.
So, if you look at it in our, the way the way we are initiated, is this, let's say, normally the sacred ceremony normally happens at the age of 9. Okay, which is a very early age. And all of us, or many of us, probably do some kind of a puja. And if you look at it, when we start the puja, okay, any puja or any worship, the first thing that we do is to purify the water. Correct? And we normally use the pure water, like Ganga, Yamuna, whatever, any river water. And the Pandit asks you, or the Purohit asks you to put your finger in the water. What has happened is we have not understood why we are doing what we are doing. Absolutely. Because this comes from humility. So essentially, you are supposed to take this first finger and put it inside the water like this. Okay, and this mutra is known as Ankush mutra. And what is Ankush? Ankush is that instrument which is used to control the elephant. Okay, now why this is known as Ankush mudra? Reason being very simple, because this is the finger which demonstrates our ego. So if I look at even with you, I will see you and do kiss. And that is why in Hindi or in Sanskrit, this particular finger is known as Tarjani. because we do all the tarjan garjan using this finger. अरे मैं आपको देख लूँगा, ठीक है? So the first thing when you start the prayer or any worship, you have to put this tarjani inside and in the water, which is to the biggest elephant inside us is our ego.
Oh, wow.
Okay. So it is again the reflection of, how do we become humble? Right? We put our ego inside. Okay, and if we look at our scriptures all the time, this has been talked about.
Yeah.
And I studied in a very normal school, Kendriya Vidyalaya, 2 rupees fees in our days. Okay, and we had a prayer, which was, and the last 2 lines was from the Chattopadhyay, okay, which is the conversation between Nachiketa and Yamraja. Om Sahana Bhavatu, Sano Bhunakku Saviram Karavavahe, Tejasvinavari Tamastu Ma Vitpishavahe, Om Shanti, Shanti Shanti. See what, we were very lucky because our teachers in those days, I am sure because I was a teacher and, we are very close to our teachers. And our class, none of us did very well in the exams. We hardly managed to get some first division at about like that. And your neighbor, my friend in MDI now, okay, so he's one of the topmost professors now. He actually managed just about 50%. Okay, of course, ISIP. And most of my friends, you look at the metro rail journal, my school friends are far more successful than my MBA friends, okay? And when we look back, I think it was the schooling.
The schooling.
And the way you were explained about this. So, the prayer essentially says that is a teacher-student relationship. And today, because, unfortunately or fortunately, I don't know, but there are majority of the schools even where private equity have taken a stick.
Yeah.
Just like in hospitals. So there the motive has become very different. But our teachers had no pressure. And we did all kinds of things. But the most important thing is this, that there was a relationship between the teacher-student. The word Ma Vitti Shavay comes from Viddesh. And there should never be any ill feeling between the teacher and the student.
Yeah, absolutely.
That is the key word. Okay. And the 3 Shantis are Adi Bhautik Shanti, which is like the corona. Okay, Adi Daivik Shanti and Adhyatmik Shanti. So then this place is air conditioned. Okay, which means that, we take care of the place, which is conducive to learning. Then there should be no natural disasters like COVID, etc. And third is your own peace.
Yes.
So that's why there are 3 Shantis, peace, peace, peace. Adhyatmik, Adi Bhautik, and Adi Daivik. So if we do all that, but we proper as teachers, if we explain that, I don't teach spirituality, if we explain that for students properly, I think as you go forward, you understand, and that meaning comes gradually. It will not come at the age of 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. As we move on, the meaning grounds gradually, and that helps us to lead a better life. That to be happy, which is this. Thank
Thank you so much. Thank you.